Am I making you nervous? Am I damaging my credibility as a person to talk to you about public speaking? Exactly. Here's the tip, number one. You are on before you are on. Before you walk in front of the group, they are watching you, sitting on the panel, twisting, turning, drinking water. So remember who you are and where you are. As soon as you walk into the building, they know who you are. So once you put on your name tag, they know who you are. So remember, tip number one, you're on before you're on. Only a very few of us can actually look different than we want to appear at the end. For example, Senator Claude Pepper, who is a divine amundo and now deceased senator. We had a national conference. He's an expert speaker, compelling, inspiring. However, he was sitting, waiting to be introduced, at a table on the side, slumped over, chin down. And for a moment we thought, my God, something's happened. There's a medical problem. What do? How do we get him out of there in a good way and not make him look embarrassed? And so the speaker was speaking, who didn't notice, poor Mr. Pepper down hunched, and said, and now the senator. And he perked up, energy just zoomed into his body. He stood up and had this incredible presentation. Only he can do that, though. Most of us do not have that gift. So when you are appearing in front of a group, try to remember, you're on before you're on. Speaking of which, there will always be something slightly awkward about your presentation, so you need to be graceful as you move along. Does the sight of a microphone make anybody a tad tense? Nervous? Yes, I see some nods. There's actually a word for it. Glossophobia. I have it written up there in Greek, in case those of you want to see the origins. This is a long-standing human condition. It is natural, it is hardwired into your body to be nervous, to be tense, speaking in front of other people. As a matter of fact, 75% of the people in this country would rather be sick, fall off a building, even die before they would stand in front of a group. And yet every one of you is being asked to stand in front of a group. Not good, not good. So the question is, how do we deal with this natural human nervousness? Well, one way to deal with it is to deal with the symptoms. You'll never deal with the root cause because it's there, it's hardwired, it's part of your body. It's part of your heritage. Dry mouth, drink a glass of water. Make it available to you. I was going to speak at the podium, so you didn't get to see my little glass of water stashed underneath. Even if NCRC had not provided me with a glass and a pitcher, I would have found my own. Even if I had to go to the bathroom with my little collapsible cup, I would have done it. Stuck it on the side, made sure I drank it ahead of time. If you're someone who's going to speak for a long time and dry mouth is a serious issue for you, there's another choice, but you have to be pretty dexterous to do it. You can put a little lifesaver under your tongue, and it sort of keeps your mouth lubricated. Now the challenge is you don't want to choke, but for those of you who are coordinated and can do the whole walking and chewing gum at the same time, that might be another choice. Another that you may want to consider is sometimes people's hands shake. If your hands shake, the way not to do it is to get a thin piece of paper, hold it in front of you. A feedback cycle will start. You'll look and say, I'm nervous. Your paper will shake more. You'll say, I'm really nervous. And the whole group will be looking at you saying, she's really nervous, she's really nervous. We are nervous for her. Don't. You don't want them to be nervous for you. So another thought is to have, one, something to support it. Two, you can have a card in front of you. Three, you can have ubiquitous PowerPoint to assist you, and I'll give you some thoughts on PowerPoints. But these are all ways to keep you from sort of collapsing in front of the group. Another is that for some people, it's the knees. You know, you're just feeling like you need to sort of lock them in place. Mega mistake to lock your knees in place. The way you can deal with it, if you're not a walker kind of person, is to at least just shift your position back and forth. It'll make you feel less rigid. If you need to hold on to something, do it. The key is not to go white knuckle. The key is to do light, okay? White knuckle, others will notice, and it will make you feel tense, that downward spiral of, if I move from here, they will know I am tense. So I will just keep standing here no matter what happens. Fire alarm, not a problem. I'm right here. Come and get me. Rescue people. I'm ready. I'm speaking. The last physical symptom that you're most likely to have is sweating. Most of us are very nervous about sweating. You can't stop it. There's nothing you can do. Wear a jacket. Be happy in wearing a jacket. And just let it roll. It's not going to make any difference to your audience. They're far enough away that they cannot see it. Just let it happen. The biggest thing to know about your physical symptoms is you are not alone. You are in very good company. Katharine Hepburn, before every stage show, would throw up. Every time to the end of her life. Now, do you need to be any better than that? I don't think so. Okay, there you go. Okay, tip number 3. Now that you've dealt with the physical problems, how do you tell a story? Well, the answer is you tell a story. Humans are hardwired also to like stories. They want to see a theme. They want to see a process and a progression. They want you to create mental images and pictures for them. And you are in a marvelous position to do that. Because as nonprofit leaders, you do the most amazing things. You have stories to tell. You talk about the core things in our lives. You talk about justice issues, shelter, sustenance. These are the things that matter to people. So when you get up to speak, talk about the things that matter to people. Even if you're getting up to ask them for money, go for the things that really matter to them. Connect with the things that they want to hear about. Know your audience, as we talked about before, and speak to your audience. I will offer you an example of not speaking to your audience. A colleague of mine was anticipating a tense presentation, but it was going to be to another 30 or so policymakers. So he prepared, went late. Excellent. That's another tip, don't go late. He walked in, and what was in front of him were 130 cops, sidearms, leather jackets, leather boots, the whole thing. Well, of course, the presentation for a group of policymakers around civil liberties issues, it's like really different when you're talking to a bunch of cops who are going to be out on the beat. It's an entirely different deal. Fortunately, he made no changes in his presentation. And so for an hour and a half, he spoke to a bunch of cops who have no policy-making function about how they could craft a good civil liberties policy. Know your audience. This could have been avoided by a simple phone call to the person organizing and saying, so who do you have coming? And how many are there? Could you just give me a little bit of background? Don't fail to do it. Even if you think you know the answer, chances are you don't. And the place you do not want to find it out is when you stride out in front of the group and think, who are these people? These are insurance salesmen. I thought I was going to a justice conference. That's not the time to find it out. Another tip, practice in advance. I know people tell you that and you think, I don't have the time to practice. Good heavens, it's enough that I do my work. I can't possibly practice in advance. Talking in public is actually a skill. And you can teach yourself this skill. It's a teaching that anyone can do. However, you have to practice. Practice a lot. President Woodrow Wilson was an accomplished speaker. And when asked one time about how he prepared and how much time it took him to prepare, he said, well, if I'm to give a 10-minute speech, it takes me 2 weeks to prepare. If I need to give an hour speech, it takes me about a week to prepare. You want a 2-hour speech? Ready now. I can just talk. This is a common problem. You know your stuff. You can talk for 6 hours about your organization and your issues. Not a problem. The problem is your audience is not ready for 6 hours of you talking about all the intricacies and important issues that you have. So the key is to take the 1-minute elevator speech. If you were trapped with President Obama in an elevator, what would you say? And you only have one shot before Secret Service comes to get you, okay? So you have one sentence that you can say to the president. What do you say that lets him know about your issues, your concerns, and hooks him in? From that, build your speech around that. Having a theme really helps. I'm going on the 5 tips for you about public speaking theme. You might have something that's slightly more inventive, but having something that shows the progression and flow of what you're talking about is particularly helpful. The top most persuasive thing to put into a public speech is a fact, preferably an accurate fact, but a fact. 75% of the people found that to be the most persuasive piece of a public speech. If you're going to offer a fact, try to do it in a way that makes it memorable. For example, I want you all to remember, as you go away from here, the number of square feet in an acre, 43,630. Now, in about half hour, how many people are actually going to remember that? I can't guarantee it. Well, there's a couple of wild, crazy people in here, but that's because this is an odd group. No, most of you are not going to remember this. However, if I said an acre is the size of a football field without the end zones, most of you would remember it. So think about ways to make your facts compelling and memorable as you go along. The next tip, number 4, is to know your audience. This is your typical audience. There you go. Over a 30-minute period, if you're lucky enough to get that. You have the basic asleep at the wheel folks, and you have the riveted. Every word you say is just being sucked in. They love it. They're with you the entire time. Okay? So when you're giving a speech, here's what's really happening. They start out, they're with you because they came to see you, so they're with you. Okay. So they're talking away, and they're starting to drift a little bit. They're starting to think about things like, you know, I was wondering, maybe I should have had the pineapple instead of the cantaloupe. It's a little hot in here, actually a little cold. Is it raining outside? Did I bring an umbrella? Did I feed the dog? And suddenly, right here, you say, in conclusion, and immediately they're back with you. Excellent. Now, the problem is the majority of the points that you are making are right down here. Not good, not good. So what you want to do is you want to be in a different space here. What you want to be able to do is to start high and then keep them with you the entire time, right? Not happening, folks. No one will stay with you this long. People drift in, people drift out. It's the human condition, and it's exacerbated by the fact that television, over a period of time, has trained us to little 1-second increments. Watch a commercial. Images will change every second for most commercials. Time it, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 4 images. So can you do better than that? Probably not. But what you can do is, you're talking, they're starting to lose it, pull them back, talking, back. Okay, these little peaks right here, how do you do that? Well, let's see now. Relevance. What you want to be able to say to people is, this matters to you, this is an important thing for you, and let me tell you why and how that's important to you. Tell them why it matters to them. Make sure that they understand that it's important to them and that it's relevant. 2, tell a story, even a little story, like about a football field or President Woodrow Wilson. Will help pull people in because that's how people learn, that's how people remember, that's how they stick it to the Velcro of their mind. They want to hear a story. Be careful though. Stories stick, so use them only for the key points in your presentation. Don't use them for just, you know, I've got stories, let me tell you, I've got a book of stories. Give them a few stories, just on the key points. You can offer a quote, a funny quote, a powerful quote. You can move. When I start moving, people start following me because I'm standing in front of the room. There's nothing else to look at the moment. So you start following me. One of the things you can do is to move. That will help people bring back their attention to you. Another thing is that all of us, after a while, kind of get into kind of a sing-song way where you kind of keep talking and they keep listening. You're talking, they're listening, you're talking, they're listening. Time's going on, suddenly they're thinking dog food. That's not where you want to be. Try to watch your pacing and timing. It will help to break it up if occasionally you stop, are silent for a moment. To you, it's going to feel a lot longer than it will to them. Before you make a point, if you ask a question, give them a nanosecond to think about it for the answer. Otherwise, what you will have are people who say, and you're on to the next question. Well, I guess nobody really has the answer, so let's just move on for this one. Okay, not a problem. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to them. And last but not least, have a throwaway. Something you were going to say, but you didn't get the time.